Welcome to the Real Advisor podcast. TRAP, Trap. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the Trap team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of Trap.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back, dear Trappists, to episode 5 of the Real Advisor podcast, TRAP. My name is Nick Lincoln. Joining me in the studio of doom as ever are the 3 other horsemen of the apocalypse, Carl Widger, Alan Smith, and Andy Hart. We have a packed show today, so let's start unpacking it straight away. I just want to lead off with the passing of Ian Taylor last week. Visionary is an overused word, but I think he really does fall into that category, with a small band of cohorts in the late 1990s. He had this idea of a platform where there was no commission, no trail. The advisor and the client set the agenda, and he was coming from another world with that idea back then. Anyway, he pursued it. Today, Transact is almost a synonym for what a platform is. And he passed away at the age of 58. Gregarious guy, really clever guy, and one of those people that we couldn't afford to lose because he'd speak his mind and he didn't care who he was telling. And we need more of those people in the world. And so his passing is a big thing. So I hope his family is coping as best they can. Alan, you have a recollection of Ian Taylor.
Yeah, just a quick one. We were, unlike some of you guys, quite late to the Transact party. We were quite early adopters of a platform, but quite late to Transact. And only a couple of years ago, we thought we need to engage with Transact. And I'd simply sent an email to their sales team, as you would do. You know, can we connect? Can we have a conversation about perhaps considering using Transact as a platform? And I'd say within about half an hour, I get a reply to my email from Ian Taylor, who I'd never met before. And his office is based close to ours in the city. And the email said, "Fancy a pint?" ?
It's a humble brag.
And I said, yeah, great. So my colleague and I just went for a beer with him, and he was just so refreshing. I just thought, in comparison with, and this is a listed business, and it was the CEO of the organization, in comparison with experiences we probably all have with trying to deal with anyone senior in larger organizations. So good, so refreshing, and we got on like a house on fire. We did have more than one pint, as is traditional, I believe, with Ian, what I began to learn. And fantastic character, and everything you say is absolutely spot on, Nick. Very, very sad loss to the profession, to the industry, and of course to his family, and our condolences to them.
Yeah. I think you can often judge a person by what's said about them when they're gone, and you think that our friend and platform superstar David Ferguson, people like this are just gushing over this guy. I mean, they kind of looked up to him, and these are people of stature in their own right. So rest in peace, Ian Taylor. So myself and young Mr. Hart, go on, Andy.
Just a quick story on Ian. Obviously he set up Transact on a tiny street just off a roundabout in Old Street, Singer Street, I believe it was called. I remember seeing him talk in St Albans at one of the hotels, and he was saying basically we get the computers to do, I think, 98% of the simple tasks that can be done by computers, but we still have that 2% element that can be done by humans, and that's what basically separated Transact from the rest. They still had that human element to get things right, but obviously automated a shed load. I didn't know him personally, but I saw him a few times. But a huge loss to this mighty profession. Yeah, sorry, over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Alan. No worries. So myself and Mr. Hart have been to South Africa and conquered South Africa for Andy's Humans Under Management South Africa leg. And it was 7 or 8 days. It was great fun. We didn't do any of the tourist stuff before anybody asks. We saw a lot of restaurants and bars. The Cape Town day was great. I'd like to thank Pierre. I'd like to thank Rob and Dirk, Lunch Club Dirk, Donnie. The reception they gave us was so warm and so lovely. It was my first time there. I think second time for you, Andy, and it was very, very, very good. And thank you, Andy, for giving me the opportunity to go there and speak. We spoke a couple of events, sort of at the start of our journey there, and at the end. And I think we went down reasonably well. We didn't cause any diplomatic incidents, as far as I'm aware. It was all good. Even giving money to the cleaners at Cape Town Airport to go back through security and buy us sleeping tablets, which could have all gone horribly wrong. It had a sort of Midnight Express vibe to the whole thing.
And myself and Alan would like to thank you both for documenting every single moment of every day on our WhatsApp group. That was amazing. Thanks, guys.
Just a couple of videos.
What goes on in Cape Town stays in Cape Town, right, guys?
We were well behaved, weren't we, Andy?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah, we had an Airbnb for the first 3 days. Me, Nick, and Pierre. Yeah, big shout out to Pierre and Rob. Yeah, it's great because when you fly to South Africa, there's no time difference. It's an hour time difference. So we flew overnight. Wasn't the greatest flight out there. The flight back was a little bit better, and we just slept most of the night. So you sort of arrive and you're sort of ready for the day, which is great. So I think you can go there and spend 3 days there or 4 days there and still come back and still feel okay. Whereas going the other way, across the globe is challenging. But yeah, it was great. It was Humans Under Management South Africa in Alan Gray's auditorium was a great day. It's a good vibe out there. It's sort of an emerging financial planning community that are focusing on behavioural, focusing on financial planning and stuff. That's all good. And then me and Nick spoke at Old Mutual Wealth, which is a huge organisation out there. If you know the sort of South African financial services environment, and we did a 45-minute presentation on an enormous stage, but most of it was asking questions, Q&A really. So it was great. Yeah, we're going to go back next year, 2023. Hopefully, Alan, you're going to come with me. Publicly agreeing to that now.
Not Carl. I'll come.
Carl can come. Carl can come the next year.
He carried the bags.
Yeah. I just looked at flights. They're incredibly expensive. I don't know why they're so expensive. So I'm hoping they're going to come down by the time I book it. Our entire profit will go on like my flight out there.
I only travel business class.
Yeah. If I can't turn left going.
There's actually not. There's not too much of a price difference between economy, premium economy, and business. Just $3,500 economy.
In that case, I'll
$4
take business.
grand premium, $5,000 business. Yeah, in this case, it would.
I tell you something else. They shouldn't call it economy. They should call it false economy. I've never taken sleeping tablets in my life, so we got these sleeping tablets bought for us illicitly at the airport. I took a couple of them, knocked back a couple of glasses of house red at 38,000 feet, and still slept for 2 hours on a 12-hour flight. And you wake up, everyone else is like, it's like waking up in a morgue. They're all just. And I was just looking daggers at this entire plane. These gits who were sleeping. Crikey. Okay, enough about that. We had a good. The one thing I would like to say is the one thing I noticed, and I'm sure you did as well, Andy, and I should have asked when I was out there. A lot more women in attendance at both events than you typically get at an event here. And if I'd had any wits about me, I should have asked, "What do you know? Why is that? Perhaps I don't know, but that was refreshing to see." So that's all well and good. So let's move on to the meat and potatoes.
Before we do, talking of humans under management. Humans under management.
Oh yeah,
is
sorry,
coming
yeah.
up soon. Don't forget, Andrew. Yeah,
London is on the 10th of November, roughly 2 weeks today from when this is launched. It's on Thursday. I'm pretty much sold out. There's going to be 300 people in the room in terms of delegates, speakers, exhibitors. Really looking to just nail it with the speaker content, and really looking forward to it. Me and Nick are going to do a similar talk to what we did in SA, so it's just a case of refining it. But really looking forward to it. So I'm sure most of the people listening to this would have already bought a ticket, but if you haven't, there are a couple of last minute tickets. So thanks to Alan. You are hosting a fireside chat, aren't you, Alan? We're introducing a fireside chat to the conference, which is unusual, but it's just like a podcast, really.
High risk strategy, but. Fingers crossed it'll work.
Hey, you got to try these things, don't you?
Exactly. Yeah, all right, let's get on with the meat and potatoes.
Let's get on with the meat and potatoes. Mr. Widger, Carl, this is a well-known phrase. It's a condition that afflicts all of us. No, not that one, Carl, and I hope it gets better. That cream does normally work. Imposter syndrome, my friend. Talk to us.
Imposter syndrome, yeah. So this came back into my head recently because when we launched this podcast in the Irish business charts, we went to number 3. And I immediately, my brain went to, oh, Jesus Christ, what are we doing at number 3? What do we know? And I know the other people on the podcast with me, and I know you guys are just nothing to be writing home about either. So I had imposter syndrome on behalf of all 4 of us, right? But But I just thought it's amazing when a topic like this comes to the top of your brain. I started seeing it everywhere, and started seeing it on Twitter from a couple of other financial advisors who are running businesses, and went, you know what? I think it will be a good idea to just put it on our agenda and just say, do you know what? It's something that affects everybody, no matter how confident you think somebody is or how successful you think somebody is. It's out there all the time. And I remember talking about humans under management when Andy asked me to speak in 2018 in Dublin. I did a talk and I was really, really nervous because it was in front of my peers and we were doing this financial planning thing that a lot of people in Ireland were going, what is this all about? And anyway, very nervous, never prepared as much for a talk. Did the talk. I think it went down reasonably well, based on the feedback. And I got amazing feedback from like competitors of mine and peers or whatever. But there was one guy. And that one guy at the lunchtime or one of the coffee breaks said, you were basically talking, what he said to me was, I think you're talking a load of shite. And talk about imposter syndrome kicking in, because in the days afterwards, the 99.99% of people who gave me great feedback all went by the wayside. And the only comment and feedback I could hear was this particular guy.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So it's amazing that how our brains work and kind of go and trick ourselves almost. And I think over time, probably like the rest of us, I've become a little bit more self-assured. And, when I do get the imposter syndrome, I do kind of just look back and go, well, look how far I've come. Because I'm never thinking that the journey is over or that the growing and learning is over. But I do need to give myself credit for what we have done here in Metis. And that's me and the team together. So when I saw us, Jesus, we're at number 3 in the charts. What are people going to think? Then I kind of take stock and I say, okay, yeah, but look, we have actually, built up a fairly successful business. And for us, like we have big goals to move this, forward and grow it an awful lot more. But I just thought, especially you guys, because you guys are the thought leaders. You're the heroes of the financial planning profession. So I said I'd put it on the agenda to provoke you all to provoke you all to admit that yes, indeed, you guys also suffer from imposter syndrome, and that would be good comfort for all other financial advisors and business owners out there to just acknowledge it. I think that's why I wanted to kind of put it on the agenda. Alan Smith, have you?
Yeah,
it's probably not for you.
Never been affected by it in my life. What are you talking about? No. We should be. What do you mean? Got number 3. We should have been number 1.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, I should have pointed out, actually, I needn't have worried because I think we're about 154 now.
Flash in a pan.
Exactly.
We had our 5 minutes of fame. No, you're right. It's funny you say that. Because you're on the reviews. As you say, you get 99% of people saying amazing. You do one. It must be the human condition, right? We are sort of destined to look for trouble or problems or negativity. As we know, I've got a separate podcast, and I've got 60 odd reviews at the moment, all 5-star, and I'm just waiting for that one to come in. Which is
you've got to get a 1-star
because I know that you two guys, Andy and Nick, when your ongoing podcast, Nick's podcast that he's done, and you've had 1-star reviews, and you've been very public about it, haven't you? You've sort of promoted it. I've got this one instead, and you're right. That would kill me. It's going to happen to me one day, and I'm just going to be so crestfallen, just so absolutely gutted by it. But Andy, you promote it, don't you? You say I've had this 1-star review.
Well, there was one recently. He said he keeps saying the same thing, buy global equities, which I think is a badge of honor, isn't it? But if you just bought global equities your entire life, you'd create incredible wealth. What more do you want from a money podcast? That is the message, basically. Yeah.
And Nick, we all know Nick Murray, your hero, has basically created an entire career out of saying the same thing over and over and over.
400 different ways to say buy equities and never sell them.
Yeah.
Let me imposter syndrome. Yeah. I'll share a quick story with you.
Grab yourself a drink, a very long drink. It's story time with Alan Smith.
Thank you, Nick. We're not going to do that every single episode, are we? So,
No.
as long as I tell a story, I'll try to keep this short. A few years ago, I mean, God knows how or why, I managed to get myself invited to a very kind of prestigious dinner. It was in a very fancy restaurant, and I saw the guest list, and it was who's who, senior CEOs, chairman of major financial services businesses. I mean, listed companies, FTSE 100 companies, and me. And so I think, okay, I'll go along for this dinner. And I just thought, oh, I'm just going to keep quiet, not say anything. Not what's that saying? It's better to remain silent and be thought of a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. Yeah. So I just kept quiet, and honestly, just sitting right beside me was literally the chairman. I obviously won't mention names. Chairman of a FTSE 100 company, up to all sorts of things, and the conversation around the room. And I just thought, what am I doing? You talk ultimate imposter syndrome. And so halfway through the dinner, and I guess a few wines had been consumed by this time, there's a guy across the table from me, and he had achieved amazing things. Again, built a business from scratch to a huge national business in financial services. And he said, he just come out with it. He's a real good icebreaker. He said, I don't know why I'm here. He said, I've been making things up. I've been making it up as I go along since I started. I don't know why I'm here with all you very senior people. And I'll tell you, then the next guy went, I was thinking exactly the same. And everyone round the table all kind of just broke into spontaneous conversation and say, yeah, I was thinking the same. I saw your name on the list. And I just thought, wow, regardless of who you are or what, I mean, the status of some people. And I was thinking, we're all just human beings, aren't we? We're all making it up as we go along. We're all just hoping to be slightly better than we were yesterday. But, you know, a lot of people will put on a defense. You hope not to get found out or caught up. But it was just, I'll never forget that, having the biggest imposter syndrome of my life, and then realizing that every other person around the table had exactly the same. I'm sure that's, you've all got experiences a bit like that.
When in South Africa, when we spoke at the Old Mutual event, it was at this beautiful resort, Arabella, the Arabella Golf and Spa Resort. It's about an hour and a half outside of Cape Town. God knows where. I didn't even look on the map where it was. That's just how little interest I actually paid to the country when I was there in terms of the geography. But it's a beautiful, I mean, it's an absolutely gorgeous resort. Andy and I were we were in suites, looking out over this golf course and this bay, and I'm thinking, why am I here? In what parallel universe do South African advisors want to hear what I've got to say? And then I had a scotch and everything became normal again. It was
and you sent us a video then from your suite to show us.
And then you went for breakfast.
Yeah.
Andy, do you have any thoughts around this phenomenon of I can't even say it, imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I suppose quite a lot. I think when you first have it, you don't even know what it is. I think that's the first step in it, is when you learn that it is actually a thing. I mean, I've probably suffered from it my entire career because I've always been usually the youngest advisor in the room.
Can I just say you are amazing at hiding it?
I've always been the youngest advisor in the room. It's slowly
Not
changing
anymore.
now. Well, now I'm an in-betweener advisor, aren't I? There's the next gen. Let's call them the in-betweeners and the and then the old buggers, which you guys are. You know, take your pick where you sit. I think you have it in your career. You have it when you're doing content. You have it when you're speaking. I suppose it's like anything, isn't it? Like nerves and stuff and anxiety and stress. You just get better at managing it. But my mantra is just do the work, wake up every day, do the work, whatever that is. You know, I'm just constantly just sort of thinking that in my mind, really. But yeah, it's definitely a thing that people suffer from. But like all things,
on that, Andy? Like, I think, like especially for you, and you've built 4 or 5 brands at this stage. Like it is incumbent on us all to just take a moment sometimes and take a step back. You can sometimes get too involved in just doing the work, but like have some periods of reflection where you go, wow, look what I've actually done, you know? And I think that those moments of reflection really do stand to you. And I think they make you almost stronger and better to go and do the next phase, whatever that might be. So, I think celebrating your achievements to date is equally as important as driving on and going to the next phase.
100%. I mean, it is all about the journey. There is no destination. You know, regardless of the fact that you think someone succeeded and they've got there, I guarantee when when you think they've got there, they're standing there saying, "I'm just getting started." So yeah, it is very much about the journey and not the destination. Adam.
You know, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach guy who's been advising entrepreneurs for 30 years or something. Yeah, a long time. He talks about this. He's got a book about it. It's called The Gap. He calls it The Gap, the entrepreneurial gap, which is all of us are future focused and we're saying, God, I haven't even, all these other things I haven't done yet, I haven't done. He said, honestly, like you say, Carl, sometimes take stock and look back on how far you've come. The last 12 months, the last 3 years, the last 5 years, give yourself the gift of that just for a minute, congratulate yourself and then get on with it. I think that's, that's good advice. The way that I summarize this is because I often do think, when you say to me, Andy, can you go and speak at this Hum conference? I think I don't know. And the worst thing is your peers, other people in the profession. I think, God, there's some really smart people out there. What the hell do I know? All I know is I'm 2 or 3 years ahead of some people and I'm 2 or 3 years behind other people. And all I want to do, if I can share my knowledge, experience and ideas with people that are behind me on the journey, just because I'm older than them, for example, then that's got to be a good thing. So just relax about it and not think that I have to live up to some sort of ridiculously ambitious, view or vision. If you just come from the premise of trying to help people, and every now and again you will get shot down, or you'll mess up or fluff it, it doesn't matter. Just get up and crack.
Do you remember who that advisor was, Carl? Like, is it is it burned in your head?
No, you're a very clever boy, Andy. That was a stupid question.
Okay.
100%.
I was just looking at your Hum feedback score. You got 8.3 out of 10. So, that's the answer, mate. And that's a blind survey, as in they don't
What
think
did
you're gonna see it.
What did I get?
Yeah, I'm getting to you. You actually did get 8.7 out of 10. I think you were the highest speaker that day. Yes,
Thank you
were.
very much.
Mm-hmm.
I
Imposter syndrome.
Played to the audience.
The topic is imposter syndrome, and Alan Smith just asked what score did I get because he knows he was the number one speaker.
Well,
it was very close.
There's nothing wrong with being competitive. We like that.
I did for myself with my score by opening my address as "Good Evening Belfast." When the event was being held outside of Dublin, that might cost me a few points. I think on the ratings.
Maybe.
Is that all right, Carl? Have we covered this?
Anything more on imposter syndrome? We're going to move on.
Yeah, no, I think it's like we could be looking at, say, Twitter followers for imposter syndrome, and I'd therefore be feeling the runt of the litter because I have less followers than the four of you guys or the other three of you guys. Which one of
Twitter doesn't count anymore. Apparently, it's LinkedIn now. Is apparently the way.
I never look at it. I never look at Twitter followers. I'm just here to serve the community. That's what I want to do.
Oh God!
Move on, quick.
Me and Alan Smith have got.
Right. Okay, I think we've done imposter syndrome. I think we all suffer it to a degree. I think, and just maybe if I just close on this quick, we will suffer it more because we're outgoing and we're asked to speak. A lot of people aren't asked to speak because they don't want to speak, and that's fine. We've all got different skill sets, so we do kind of put ourselves out there to be shot down sometimes. And also, but when you're on that stage, it's because we are the kind of personalities that want to do that and want to give back, and that's not for everybody. So we're already kind of in a bit of a segment, as it were. So Andy, you have a topic you want to talk about: beauty parades, in or out. Expand, my good friend.
Yeah, so this is obviously something that every single advisor, every single person in business really goes through. And what the classic beauty parade is someone is a client and they're looking for a service. In our situation, it's Mr. and Mrs. usually. They're looking for a financial advisor. They think they're the prize, let's just call it that, as in a new client. They may or may not be. And then they go and see three firms. And they want the three firms to put on a beauty parade. That's the saying. As in, pitch me, why should I go with you type situation. And I know some firms do a lot of this, certainly in the investment management world, where it's just an investment mandate. They want to see facts, figures, data, portfolio. Oh, I mean, it must be excruciating. In the financial planning world, it's more, I'm aware of this firm. I'm aware of this person. I get the feeling, gut feeling. I want to go with them. Can I become a client? Are you taking on new clients? And it's a bit more like that. So yeah, over the years, I've sort of pandered to this somewhat if I've been, desperate for clients or whatever. But in recent years, I'm less up for it. I attract people that sort of want to be a client of mine rather than looking for an advisor on the internet. And if I know there's a beauty parade going on, I'll try and not get involved in it. And I'll say to the client, look, if you're looking at a few firms, just, go with whoever you feel. I'm sort of declaring myself out here. If you want to work with me directly, then we can sort of progress this forward. Most of my clients or all of my clients come from recommendation or because they're, podcast listeners or something like that. So I think beauty parades is quite a big, chunky area. So, who's going to take that next?
Let me. I'll quickly talk about it, then I've done my piece. Because I take my clients all by referral.
Yep.
I was just thinking when you were talking there, Andy, I was trying to think the last time I had a beauty parade, and it would have been about 3 months ago. And I went along with it. I gave them one meeting online. They didn't come with me, which is fine. But that's the first one forever. And I can't talk for Carl or Andy. Alan, they'll add their thoughts at the moment. But I just typically don't get involved with them. And I was quite surprised. The last one was a beauty parade.
I think
where they were referred from.
I think because we run quite small businesses and we're sort of personality brands, we don't come across it that much. But I know these guys do come across it. So over to you guys, really.
Do you want me to go, Alan? Or
I'll just say I haven't got much to say. I don't think on this. I was asked recently. Was it a beauty parade? But it was somebody who was looking for an advisor, had been referred, was considering engaging with. How do I describe the largest wealth management company in the UK? And then before he did, thought, "Can I just have a chat with you?" And asked me the dreaded.
Know the power of the dark side.
And before, so the question to me, it was a Zoom call, was, Alan, tell me how you're different. And I hate that question because we mentioned Nick Murray earlier on. Nick Murray's got a lot to say on this,
doesn't he? Yeah.
And he says, well, first of all, I don't know. But what he says, can you imagine being asked? Imagine you're an eminent neurosurgeon or something, a qualified doctor. You go along before your heart surgery. Listen, Mr. Surgeon Doctor, tell me, how are you different from the other surgeons out there? You just
say, shut up and sit down. I'm going to operate on you. I'm the best.
But the answer. I mean, that's what Nick Murray says. Is I don't know. Because I don't know what other people do. I can guess by looking at websites, but I honestly don't know how everyone else operates. What I do know is how we operate, and only you can decide or can choose. The answer is you can, because the trouble is you enter those things. It's the person who says the most appealing thing wins. So if you were to say, I think we can give you higher investment returns than someone else, then maybe you win. And I mean, we've talked about this in the past. Having integrity costs you. Because you just tell the unvarnished truth to people, and people sometimes don't want to hear the unvarnished truth. What do you think about the markets? What are they going to do? And you say, I have no idea. People don't like to hear that. Whereas others, and I've certainly been in beauty parades, like everyone, won our fair share of beauty parades and lost quite a few as well. And I don't regret the ones we lost because we just, I know we told the truth and stuck to it. So in summary, what I'd rather get to is a place where people are coming to us because they just want to deal with us as a consequence of either content that we've created and pushed it out in the world and they've liked it and engaged with it, and or personal introduction from long-term clients. What I don't want is people who are going, classic internet inquiries. I've done a bit of Googling and I'm going to speak to 3 companies. Tell me why you're different.
Carl, do you want to jump in? I've got a couple more points to make on it.
Yeah, all very relevant points. Like, honestly, we don't see ourselves in being asked to get involved in beauty parades because, a little bit like Nick said, it's mostly from referral. But back in the days when we were saying that we knew what the best pension fund was, being honest, before we did real financial planning, we were in loads of them. And what I found is we were in one recently, so I'll just tell you that story actually, right? So we were
There's always one.
Yeah, we were asked to
that
go
doesn't
in.
apply to us. Oh, actually, last week we... No, I'm joking.
Yeah. We were asked in because I knew one of the partners in this firm, right? So, and we were up against all the big shots, right? And I knew they're not going to want a kind of boutique financial planning firm, even though we knew that's what they needed. But anyway, we didn't get it. And it was no surprise. And my buddy showed me some of the presentations afterwards. And go back to Alan's point about integrity. There was just stuff that was wrong.
Yeah.
Stuff that they knew was incorrect. Like your management charge is going to be X. And I'm going, that's not what the total expense ratio is. There's VAT on top of that. There are trading costs, and it's like, so did we do the right thing? I think we told them exactly what we felt where we could add value, right? That's all we can do, I suppose. So I'd be hesitant to get involved in too many of them, but honestly, we're not asked in, because we don't go after it's financial planning is what we do for families. So we're not asked to, punt for a mandate of 20 million or 10 million or whatever it might be. So yeah, wouldn't be jumping up and down if we were asked tomorrow to get it to pitch in 4 or 5 beauty parades. That wouldn't be success as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, a couple of other points on this. I also think it's important for you to have a process of taking on new clients and prospects, as in, even if they're potentially interested in you, you still follow your process. And in my world, that's every client needs to fill in a discovery form, which is, I think, incredibly well worded, well laid out. How did you hear about us? Did someone recommend us? How can we help? All open questions. What is your main financial concern at the moment? Have you worked with a financial advisor before? If so, how did that go? So I've got quite a tight screening process, and a lot will be unearthed via that form. And then obviously I'll have a usually Zoom meeting with them and then take it from there. I think actually a client that I'm working with now that's doing a new investment for something, I think I was involved in a beauty parade with him, but the other advisor was so terrible. I know the advisor as well. I know
Andy, Mandy, mate, this is our conversation. I wasn't on form that day. We've had this
I thought, I can't be up against this guy. This is a career low. And anyway, the client was like, Andy, I'm not even going to have the second meeting with this. It's clear that it's just night and day. So I was like, fine, that's brilliant. We'll do that. The other thing as well, which is a bit of an extension to this, unless anyone wants to jump in.
On that very point, we will get people come to us, and as you know, we quite often work with business owners who've sold their business, and they get a big lump of money hits their bank account, their literal current account, and guess what happens? They get a phone call from
the bank,
from the bank.
Coots.
Yeah. Well, but it's not Coots, isn't it? It's because everyone's just had normal bank accounts.
Oh yeah, like Barclays.
Something with a big load of zeros lands, and everyone goes,
"Do you remember?
Oh, can we have a call, please?"
Do you remember we spoke about it, Alan? That sometimes it's like a bank account that some guy set up or girl set up when they're at uni. When they're at uni, so it's like Warwick Barclays has got 12.5 million landed. Yeah. They're going, what are we doing with this? Who's this person?
Now that is actually true. Setting up, first bank account when you're at uni, and they're usually running student overdrafts. All of a sudden, someone lands. You get the call. But I would speak to these prospective clients, and because I know, and again, it's slightly risky, but I think it's a good thing to do, because they'll say, look, I've been asked to go and meet with the blah 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 private banking unit of this company, this bank that I've been banking with for 20 years. They haven't spoken to me in 20 years, but now they want to speak to me, and I say you should go and meet them, go and see what they got to say, because touch wood, so far without fail, they come back and say, I'm absolutely making the right choice to go with you, because a lot of these organizations aren't well suited to dealing with the sort of clients that we want to deal with. It's big brand. They've got, nice office furniture.
Yeah.
And all that sort of, but it's quite, if anything, it removes or reduces the kind of buyer's remorse that sometimes you have. If they've gone with you without seeing anyone else, they might say, I wonder if there's something better out there. So it's not a bad thing. You got to know who your competition is, but certainly if our potential client wants to go and see one of the big brand sort of national banks or the private banking arm, I would say, yeah, fine. Yeah. I think it's a strengthens our sort of more boutique proposition.
I think be yourself and don't pander. And as you say, tell the truth. And some you'll land, some you won't. Just an extension on this. I don't know if it's a related topic. It sort of is. References. So when they potentially go, okay, yep, we want to go with you guys now. Then have you got any references from existing clients? God, I used to turn myself in not dealing with this issue. Now I provide 0 references, and on my initial sort of page for them to become a client, I've got it written out. I do not provide references from existing clients. It's likely I've come highly recommended by someone you trust or you've found me from my financial education content. In my early years, I provided references. Now I don't. Trust your gut or don't work with me. I've never let any of the families I serve down. That's what I tell them now. I'm not pissing around with that. Because
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy, he knows about everything. Andy can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart.
What a voice.
So what do we think about references? This is something that they think.
Never mind references. What do we think about that jingle?
Ultra crepidarian. Come on, just give.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. Is that what she said?
This is a new word that I taught Nick, and I'm popularising the word. It's called ultra crepidarian. It basically means someone who thinks they know a subject well, but they don't. In the investment world,
we're all describing.
We're all ultra crepidarians. A chef friend of mine introduced it to me. It's a fascinating word, ultra crepidarian. I'm going to be talking about it at Hum. Yeah, so references, what do we think about that? So what I used to do is they'd say, do you work with similar people like me? And I'm like, yeah, I work with humans and money. Yeah, of course I do. Next. And then they're like, oh, do you work with, certain wealth, certain characteristic, and then I have to think, well, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, then I'd have to get 3 names on a list. Contact the clients first. Say, I'm going to take on a guy called Carl. He's asked for references. Can I put you on the list? Yes, you can. Put the 3 people on the list, send it to Carl, for example, and then he may or may not call them. And as if I'm going to give that person 3 names that are not going to speak highly of me.
That's
so the whole thing is loaded. It's a waste of time. Anyway, that's my
testimonial videos on your website.
That would deal with a lot of it. Yep.
That's what we do. You can see the.
So and I think that it's kind of, I spoke about this a couple of years ago, and I thought, why wouldn't you? It's quite not a bad thing to do. Just have them have a conversation with a client who's a little bit like them. It does impose somewhat on your existing client, because who wants to take a random phone call from someone else? But we've all got clients who are advocates who proudly want to share their thing. So in a way, I take a different view. If somebody did say, could I have a conversation with someone else who's kind of a bit like them? I've got half a dozen of real advocates that are always happy to want us to do well, want other. But I'm kind of neutral
again. So again, I'm someone who uses lots of services, lots of professionals. The other thing as well, someone will get highly recommended by a family member, say go and use Andy, and then they'll still want references. And I think, your best mate, your brother's recommended me. He's been using him for 7 years. Is that not enough of a testimonial that I've now got to run off and speak to?
Andy, do you get this a lot then? Because I haven't had.
No, I don't get it a lot. I don't get it a lot.
10 years.
I don't get it.
You're very passionate about something you don't get a lot.
I know. I've dealt with it. And then the final thing on this is I use professional services. So, for example, you say, "Oh, Andy, it's really important when someone's looking after your money." When I was looking for a childminder come highly recommended from a friend of mine who I incredibly she's done all the research. She's been using this lady for 5 years. We rocked up. We said, right, here are the kids. She's like, oh, do you want the paperwork? Do you want references? I'm like, no, nothing. Sign up. They're in, and they're my kids because they're highly recommended from someone I know incredibly well. Like, again, it's the same with the money. I don't know. It's a bit odd anyway. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah. I think we're coming to the end of this beauty parades
segment
subject. Interesting. The one I had recently, Alan sort of got me thinking about this, the integrity thing. I think we're all quite blunt and direct, aren't we? And we tell people the truth as we see it. And I think I doubled down on it because I knew if it's a beauty parade, I know elsewhere they're going to be given graphs and numbers and they're going to be fibbed maybe about the fees. Yeah. So I went ultra Lincoln on them just to get it over and done with, really. So that's
the thing, ultra Lincoln, not just Lincoln. Ultra Lincoln.
I went hardcore Ultra Lincoln.
Did you get asked to just leave the premises immediately? Just get out. Don't darken
I ended the Zoom meeting without saying goodbye. Zoom. I just hung up. That's what I did. No, I didn't do that.
And you didn't get the business. Wow.
No, amazing. We're 40 minutes in. We've still got to do our listeners' questions and our culture corner. there's a subject, Alan, you put on for discussion. I think what we might do, and that subject was solopreneur versus growing a practice, and that's a massive, massive subject. I think it's going to be
it's come up from a few
Trappists.
Trappists. Yeah, a few have asked about it, but it's a big one. Maybe we'll do a bigger theme next
Well, I
time
think
around.
should we announce it now? So that will be the lead-off subject for episode 6 in 2 weeks' time. So if you're interested in that discussion around solopreneur versus growing a practice, that will be our lead-off discussion, and it could be the discussion that takes up the bulk of the show. So if you've got any questions around that, get it in on the link on the pinned tweet at the top of our.
We'll do a proper debate. We'll have the solos against the firms, right?
Exactly.
Right.
We'll go at it really hard.
Will that be a live episode, Nick? Live on YouTube?
I doubt it very much, my friend. No. But keep on asking, and I'll keep on saying no. Excellent. I think it's time that we move on to the next section where we handle questions from our beloved Trappists. So let's crack on and do it. Now, I've got these questions are quite verbose. That's another one, Andy. You can add that and enjoy it later on. These questions are quite verbose. So I'm going to read these out. Don't lose the will to live as I do it. The first one is from Sam B. Didn't supply a Twitter handle, unfortunately, so he may not even be on Twitter. So I don't. On that note, guys, I'm just live talking here, but maybe we shouldn't have questions unless the Twitter handle is supplied, because then we can tag them in the notes and it gets the conversation going. But then maybe we'll exclude people who aren't on Twitter by doing that. Just a thought. Anyway, Sam B, who hasn't given me a Twitter handle, says, I am part of a family financial planning business. Our investment philosophy is heavily weighted towards the long-term power of global equities. Okay, all good. Our most aggressive portfolio is 100% equities, but our second most aggressive is 85 equities and 15% cash. Over the long term, do you think it's better to have 80% equities and 20% bonds, or 85% equities and 15% cash? Would like all of you to answer, but particularly Nick and Andy, as I have consumed their content before and would love to hear their thoughts. So I'll quickly lead, and then Andy, maybe you tie a bow on it. You're splitting hairs. I mean, it's 80 equities, 20 bonds, or 85 equities. You've made the big decision, which is to have the bulk of the money in the great companies of the world. That's and the other 15 or 20% is dead money. Whether you let it die in cash or you let it die in bonds, and you have don't sweat it. That doesn't make any difference. The big thing is getting the money into real assets. An investment that's going to give you a rising income stream and rising profits, and that's the great hedge against inflation. Don't sweat it beyond that, and ideally get all your clients as much as you can within the constraints of your compliance. And that's the next question, to 100% equities. Andy,
that's a good term, Nick. Dead money. It will die in cash or die in bonds. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, it's not I mean, don't, hopefully that's not keeping them up at night. Jesus Christ, you must have other issues to worry about in the business. It's a family business. How am I going to kick dad out or whatever, or mum? It depends on the client. I mean, if they're an accumulating client, a saving client, then it's a bit of a moot point. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if they're a spending client, then having it in bonds or having it in cash, again, it depends on the overall situation. I need to create a financial plan, speak to the client, yada yada yada. But it's not. Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. It's not hugely important. Over to you, Cole.
Yeah, irrelevant would be what I think about that. But I'm guessing that this could be, don't know, but my guess would be this is somebody at the outset of their career and getting too worried about the detail. Look, don't sweat it. Just get people mostly invested in equities if you can at all. As I said in one of the previous episodes, keep it really simple. So Dimensional World Allocation or Vanguard Life Strategies, set them up, set them on their way, and then make sure they stick with the plan. And if it's fit for purpose at the outset, it is almost always fit for purpose when there are temporary market declines. So don't get into the nitty gritty. You've nailed the big question, which is what drives the most return? Equities.
Yeah, I agree. Overthinking it a bit. There's a phrase, I mean this positively, but naive complexity. Overthinking. It's not that complex. It's big picture stuff. We're talking generally. We talk about 3-decade investing. That's a long time. And you've answered the biggest questions. You say, to quote Andrew Hart, the best portfolio is the one that you're going to stick with through all seasons. So whether it's either one of those two that was described, if you stick with it, you'll do okay. Next.
Okay. I think that leads nicely on to the next question. But I think the point that Andy made, I think he probably is a younger person, and we've all been there. We all get immersed in the weeds, and we think that's the important stuff, and then over time we unlearn everything we thought was important to find out.
100%, but that doesn't make the question invalid. You know, it's a question that probably a lot of people have.
Absolutely, it's a question I would have asked 20 years ago, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, the next question is from Will S. Again, didn't leave a Twitter handle, and this one is. Oh, crikey. Okay, let's go. Deep breath. If a planner is under a compliance-driven risk profiling question system, such as Oxford Risk or what have you, and the client's in retirement and they do the questionnaire and come out at low, medium, and you have a chat with the clients, they seem cautious, inexperienced, and you put them into a portfolio that aligns with the risk profile questionnaire, say 40 to 60% equities, but you know that they should be in 70 to 90. How do you get around that? Couldn't that come under scrutiny from the scary regulator? So I think what Will S is asking is, if they grade at a certain level via the mumbo jumbo questionnaire, how can then you put them into what the regulator compliance would deem a higher risk portfolio without causing problems for you and maybe causing problems for the client later on down the line when the portfolio has a totally normal temporary decline? I will answer that, but you guys go first. So one of you come back on that.
Let me just come in quickly on this. I always believe that the risk profiler questionnaire, should you choose to use one, is just the icebreaker. It's the opening part of the conversation, right? It is part of a one way or another. You've got to identify.
It's not a nice opening conversation. Imagine being in a bar and just talking to a random person. It's
part of an engagement thing. But here's it's the same old stuff, isn't it? It's identifying the difference between what risk is, and as we know, the industry's got risk confused with short-term volatility. That's exactly the biggest thing. Yeah. One thing that I think is just a useful, there is no way of predicting what's going to happen in the future, but history is a guide, right? There's 100 years plus of data to say if you choose this portfolio, this is a likely long-term outcome. If you choose this portfolio, this is a different alternative. Just choose your roller coaster ride. They're all roller coaster rides. They're all up and down. Some are more volatile than others, but they arrive at different destinations over this amazing sort of 3-decade plus time horizon. So I think you do have the conversation, but you say, if we follow this route, which is ticking all the boxes and is compliant, the outcome is likely to be suboptimal. So here's something else to have a conversation around. And that's where the advisor adds value, surely. It's having those rich conversations, but you do have to document it. This is the thing. We're all kicking around these thoughts and ideas, but there is a compliant process. We are working in regulated, compliant businesses. You've got to somewhat play the game. I don't mean that in a negative way. You've got to really understand what your client's philosophy is. And I'm quite a fan of sort of documenting what I call a very simplistic investment policy statement. Because I can guarantee you this portfolio will have a short-term correction of X% at some future point. Here's what we're going to do. It's a classic lifeboat drill. In advance of this, let's agree now. So when it happens and you're in a state of heightened emotion, we're going to go back and say, this is what we agreed to do. Everyone should seek higher returns over the longer term because that gives greater options to the client and to the family.
Freedom.
So that's my thoughts.
I've got a real life case with this. So I look after one half of the couple, and then the other half of the couple is now becoming a client. They've just a lot of money just landed, and the other half that's now a client has never invested before. I'm filling in my investment profile. So never invested in collective investments, never chosen funds before, never invested in the stock market, never done any alternative investments, never done an investment property. Like all of the answers, 0 to 10 experience, she put 0. But then on the question about how willing are you to deal with short-term volatility to get a better return, that was answered 10, 0 to 10. These are all just conflicting, answers via these, complex questions really for clients, even though we look at it and think it's a simple question, why they're struggling with it. So I now have this somewhat dilemma. Obviously, I've spoken at length with them about volatility and gone through all the numbers. The most important page that me and Nick, I know, use in our suitability letters is 25 years worth of calendar year returns. Isn't that right, Nick? So we have, and generally 25% of those years are red, 75% are black, as in positive versus negative. That is the key page that we want our clients to be looking at. I think that trumps most of the other questions, most of the other reports, most of the other data. That's an incredibly important page.
I don't think you guys use Timeline, do you? Timeline is very good at doing this. Using real life historic data. The future won't replicate the past, but there will be similarities, and it goes through bloody world wars, you name it, and this is likely to happen.
But the page that me and Nick are sharing is their portfolio last 25-year calendar returns, end of year calendar returns. Which, why have we picked that period? That could be argued all day. It just is what it is. Time is a human construct, but we've got to work within it. And that's the most important page that we share. But it is a challenge, and a lot of people are being. I call them misconception mirrors attitude to risk questionnaires. I know obviously people are going to say, no, ours is different. This is better. But I think, I would say, if someone's going to complete a risk questionnaire and they're going to end up in a low risk portfolio, what the hell am I doing here anyway? Then, if they're going to work with me and be a client of mine, I'm going to hold their hand. I'm going to get them the returns. Why would they end up in a portfolio that end up on their own? It's like, no, what? There's a professional involved here. I know where the returns are going to come from. I'm going to hold your hand. I might have to hold your hand a bit tighter and, be a bit more attentive to your nervousness. I think they say you want to find out how loud they're going to knock on your office door. Is this just going to be a little bit of market volatility, or is it going to be a bang, 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 bang? Which I think. Yeah,
I like. Surely this is a question about what real financial planning is. It's not actually about risk questionnaires. Yeah. It's so this is the crux of it. It doesn't really matter what the risk profile questionnaires come out from. And we had a conversation the last day about, what makes a financial planner. And I think it's the interpretation of the financial plan is what makes a real financial planner. So yes, you can say, okay, well, if you're coming out at a level 2 out of 7 or whatever you're coming out at, well, here's the likely returns. And that means you're going to run out of money when you're 73. And that's who said suboptimal? That's kind of suboptimal, right? So, so it's like, it's coaching, educating, bringing them on that journey as to here's where we need to get to. So if we need a return of 5% per annum, here's the type of portfolio you're going to have to look at, even though your risk profile is still a lot. So it's just bringing them on that journey. And I think the documentation of how you bring them on that journey, then, Adam, we've struggled with that one. And where we've fallen now, and it's really working, I think, is, and our head of compliance, Sinead, loves this, is once the meeting is done, you do a video to the client. And it's just it's a debrief video, whereby we just chat about the main topics of what we went on. And we bring it up in the video to say, and you came out at a 2 out of 7, and we think you should be in a 4 out of 7, or whatever, right? But talk about it in layman's terms, because then we have it documented that it's on the file. We did speak about it, and we have reminded you with this update video afterwards. And I think that's a really good way of making sure that it's in your file. And I think that gets around your issue, which I think was in the question about, well, how do you solve that compliance risk? And I think that definitely helps doing that. So that's how we do it.
I really like the concept Nick introduced a few years ago, capacity for cash. So any new investments now, I have modeled the financial plan with cash returns, and the money runs out very quickly. And I remember showing the client only about 3 weeks ago. I said, well, this is if your money's in cash. And he said, well, we're not going to do that, are we? And I said, no, we're not going to do that, but this is what the outcome would be. So we're already starting from the point of suboptimal outcome. You're going to run out of money in your mid-70s. And he was like, we're not going to do that, are we? No, I know we're not. We're going to invest it and you're going to get a return. But I'm showing you if you don't invest it. I think it's really, really powerful to start from that.
Well, it creates the baseline, doesn't it? This is, and we've often done that. This is where you are right now. And they may well be 100% in cash, or they may be in a very, very defensive portfolio. You could say, before we start doing anything, if you're on the this is where you're going to end up now. It's a demonstration. It's a clear demonstration of the value add that we can bring. But we're going to give you something which is likely to give you better outcomes.
But you're basically saying you have no choice. You need to invest this money. Not the other way around. Let's scare you off the ledge before we've even discussed it. No, if you leave this money in cash, there's a known outcome. If you invest this money, which is going to be volatile, but there's a chance you're going to get over the financial finish line. Currently, you're 25 years under the financial finish line. You need to invest this money. But we've not learned that from any risk profiling companies. We've learned that as professional, client-focused financial planners using financial planning software. They've not taught us that.
Round of applause, Nick.
No, I mean, I've got to find that on the hoof now. There we go.
Can I whilst you're doing that, right, Alan? You mentioned defensive strategy, like that. We need to bust that myth, because that doesn't, like, what were defensive portfolios? Oh, loads of bonds and maybe a bit of cash and a bit of alternatives.
God, yeah.
So we've proven. We haven't proven anything. The market has proven over the last 5-10 years that they don't exist. They don't work. They cost too much. They're suboptimal.
We need to call them low return. This is a low return portfolio. It's a medium return portfolio. It's a high return portfolio.
You said that before. Would you want a high return portfolio or a low return? This one, the high return, which everyone wants, it does come with a bit more volatility. That just comes with the territory. Like, you want to get fit,
it's not risk.
You got to go to the gym. There's a payback for everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're at 55 minutes. Just on that point. So Will Smith asked that point. It sounds to me, Will, that you're putting the cart in front of the horse here. You know, and as Carl alludes, as we will say every episode, because it's a truism and we believe it. There's no portfolio without a plan. You do the financial plan, that will determine the portfolio. As Andy said, in most cases, low return portfolios are the highest risk. They will see you running out of money. We don't put people into equities because we like scaring the willies out of them. We do it for a reason. The attitude to risk questionnaire is part of the. I've got one. I've got a hidden page with about 3 or 4 questions. I have it on there to weed out the lunatics who say, "Yeah, I want to beat inflation by 4%. And I don't want any volatility." And I go, "Okay, nurse, send the next loon in." So I would suggest, Will S., that you just refine your client acquisition process. You shouldn't be getting to the stage where once they've got the mumbo jumbo questionnaire and it comes back they're a 4 out of 10, that it's a problem. You should intuit that from the first meeting or so when you're talking to them about their plan and their planning and how you're likely to be in an equity portfolio. And if they look at you like you're naked, that's the sign. Then they get them out of the room and bring the next people in. Because then otherwise you'll always be bashing against these stupid bloody mumbo jumbo questionnaires, which are the bane of our profession. And I think there's a tsunami of litigation coming to the designers of these cretinous bits of software, because what's happened with the bond markets has changed everything on the industrial side. We know all this stuff already. We've done it for years. This is going to change the industrial side, hopefully for the better. And I had 2 clients last week. I actually got 2 new clients, believe it or not, and minor miracle.
Round of applause.
At the end, I give them my hidden page, my attitude to risk questionnaire, and the answers came back exactly as I thought they would do. Nick, we understand. We're not bothered. We want to beat inflation. We're going to accept volatility. We'll look at our valuations once or twice a year. We're not bothered by it. And that's exactly what I expect to get with all of my clients, because I'm rigorous with the onboarding process. They don't get that far down the line if I think they're going to have the willies about having shares. Technical term, my good friends, dear Trappists. I think, listen, we better wrap this up. We've quickly go around the culture corner. I think that makes kind of sense to me. Okay, I've got one. This is one for you, Carl, because I know you're a big Jordan Peterson fan. I've signed up for his essay software, which is a browser-based word processing package. It's as Jordan says in a video about this, the word processors haven't really changed since WordPerfect in the mid 1980s, and Word and Google Docs. What Essay is you get it through your browser. It's a very stripped back word processor, but it helps you organize your ideas, and you can simply drag and drop themes, and it just helps you build. And I paid a one-off fee to have it for life. So so far I'm liking it. We're all communicate. We are, in this profession, we are arch communicators. The people that communicate are the ones that are the top of the tree. So communications is vital, whether we do it verbally or written. So I'm really working hard to always hone my writing. So Jordan Peterson's essay, I would suggest it. And there'll be a link to all these in the so-called show notes.
How much did you pay for it?
I think for the lifetime, it's something like £200.
It's interesting how these big sort of internet celebrities, let's call them, are getting involved in a lot of software. Sam Harris does it quite a bit. Jordan Peterson. It makes sense, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Your one, Andy, was Monetizing Innovation by George Tack. Is that how you say it?
It's like, there is no E on it. It's Jork. I think it's pronounced slightly differently anyway. And Madhaven Ramanjam. I think it's Sri Lankan origin.
Ramanjam, maybe. Depends.
Yeah. It's called Monetizing Innovation. Alan, we've spoken about this a few times, reading books on pricing.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of books on pricing. This one is in a different league. I sort of beat myself up around pricing, and I've got a few membership sites. So for me, it's really, really hitting home. He is on the Invest Like the Best podcast. Yeah, he's on Invest
Patrick
Like
O'Shaughnessy.
Patrick O'Shaughnessy, Invest Like the Best podcast. He's on that.
Recently. It's good.
That's decent. I actually haven't started reading the book, but I know it's going to be amazing. It's called Monetizing Innovation, where what happens is people come up with an idea, a startup, and they spend 9 months on the back end working out how to build this software and what they're going to do and launch it. They then spend 9 minutes before they're going to launch about the pricing. He's like, no, the pricing is so important, and how then, long story short, he says Steve Jobs was the absolute king of pricing, just by accident. I say by accident. Obviously, Steve thought a lot long and hard about it, but he probably didn't read any books about it. He just had loads of experience. So, for example, there'll be 3 Macs for sale. One's for £2,000, one's for like 2,400, and one's for like 3,800. They obviously want you to buy the one in the middle or whatever. I know it's like decoy pricing and loads of other stuff, but this Monetizing Innovation book is, as I say, I haven't actually read it, but I know it's going to be amazing based on the podcast. So, and a couple of other people I know that are sort of involved in pricing. So if you're in the, if you're in the fixed fee world, that might be more use for you.
We should have a whole episode one day dedicated to pricing, smart pricing within financial planning businesses.
That sounds like a plan. Alan, you got a couple of things in your Culture Corner recommendations for the Trappists?
Indeed. First one is, of all people, one of the biggest investment banks in the world, JP Morgan. JP Morgan produce every quarter a report which they what do they call it? JP Morgan Guide to the Markets. And it is, it's about 70 odd pages. A lot of it is US, but a lot of it is kind of not really relevant to us. But there's probably half of it that is, I'm not really a geek and a sort of into data and spreadsheets and that, but there's some fantastic stuff in it. I did it. I looked the whole thing, and on my Twitter account, and that's my current pinned tweet, because I've just sort of share all the relevant slides that are come from the most recent quarterly report. There's some really good stuff in it, and it would support in these current crazy times. It would support the case for being a rational optimist. Some of the data that's in it, well worth checking out. JP Morgan Guide to the Markets, which is free and really accessible. You're
not trying to increase your Twitter followers, are you, at the moment, or anything?
No, I never look at it, as you know. I
see you've chosen to wear a different jumper today, the one that's got sleeves.
And the second one I've got is called Readwise, readwise.io. Now, we all four of us here, I think we consume a lot of stuff, podcasts, books, all that. I know that you guys are quite big in Audible and listening to books. For whatever reason, we're all made differently. I like to read. I read books on Kindle or the Kindle app on my phone. And when I read them, and most of them being nonfiction, so they're about business or whatever, and I highlight bits. I just get on my Kindle, you just highlight a paragraph or a line or something. Oh, that's really interesting. And then you link your Kindle or whatever digital reader that you use to this app called Readwise, and it uses this format of just repetitive learning. So you can set it up anytime you want, but every morning about 6 a.m. when I'm having a coffee or something, this thing just lands in my inbox, and it's like, you can do as many as you want. I've got 10 randomly selected highlights from books I've read in the past. And there's almost every day you think, oh yeah, I remember reading that a year ago, 2 years ago, because it helps to internalize some of the knowledge, because the danger is just reading loads of books and then going, yep, next. And I haven't really internalized any of the ideas or insights. So it's a nice, seamless kind of setup just in your inbox, quick look once a day. Oh yeah, I remember that idea that I thought at the time was brilliant. Therefore, I highlighted it. So I recommend readwise.io.
Great stuff. And finally, sorry, Kyle, I had to wait a little while there. Mr. Widger, The Human Side of Money, my friend. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Andy, was Brendan Fraser, was I introduced to him at Humans Under Management? Did you have him speaking at Humans Under Management?
Yeah, I had him speaking. Yeah, he's a good guy.
I couldn't remember, was it? I was nearly sure it was there. Yeah, I think like his podcast, The Human Side of Money, is really, really good. But he's also got a newsletter. It's really good. Follow him on Twitter. But that particular episode is a bit of an oldie. And the reason I put it up was obviously we're getting tweets from people who are following our own channel and questions via that. But this one is about social media for financial advisors. And I think it's possibly a topic we should actually have a look at ourselves. And not that we're any great experts, but obviously we've the two boys trying to beat each other on Twitter. So just to explore that game that you're playing. But in this particular episode, Brendan interviews Samantha Russell, who is a force of nature when it comes to financial advisor marketing in the States. Right. So I would highly recommend all of Brendan's stuff if you're not on it already. But if you're into social media marketing for your job as a financial planner, get on this one, Brendan's interview with Samantha Russell.
Excellent stuff. Wow, look at that. 65 minutes have just gone so quickly. I think we're going to have to tie it up there. Thank you so much, gents, for your contributions. Thank you, Trappists, for listening and contributing. This is your show as much as ours. I think the next show is going to be around that subject of solopreneur versus growing a practice. So if that's of interest to you, leave a question in the form in the pinned tweet at the top of @AdvisorPodcast. Do leave a nice review on iTunes, 6 out of 5 ideally. Do like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Don't have much else to say, gents. See you all soon. Thanks for another cracking show. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very
See
much.
You later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
Bye.